Welcome to episode 14 of the LAN Partners Podcast. I'm your host, Connor, and with me, of course, is Dave.
Hello.
And as always, is Matt.
Hey, hey.
This week, we are playing Name That Game. I'll explain that a little bit later. I have a review of the second game of the Kingdom Hearts collection, which is Chain of Memories. Dave's going to be talking to us about Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. Our discussion topic is the Vita, a little bit of history and what went wrong with it, a couple news stories, and our list for the day is Halo multiplayer maps. So we are just three guys who have full-time jobs, families, and other hobbies who just love to game. What makes this podcast different is that we will, of course, talk about new games, but we will also talk about games that came out 2 or 3 years ago as if they were new. We just want to share our experiences playing these games in case you're in the same spot as us where your gaming time is limited. Please download the podcast by Apple app, Stitcher, Google Play for you Android users, or go on iTunes and hit subscribe. That way you get our weekly episodes uploaded to you every Thursday. If you have questions, discussion topics, or list ideas, please message us on Facebook, send an email, thelandpartners@gmail.com, or just simply leave a comment. Also, you can check out our LAN Partner Twitch page. We have a lot of videos up there about games that we talk about. So that's all these links are in the description. Let's go ahead and get episode 14 kicked off with our reader review game. So this is basically where we just read a user review, whether it be on GameStop, Steam, any of those websites, and we read the review and we try to guess what the game actually is. So Matt, why don't you start us off with your review for the week?
All right, I will do. So my review, it's not really a hint, but it is the Steam review, but it is available off of PC as well. Okay, so this review says, this game has 2 different endings. 1, finding the center of the galaxy, and 2, the refund ending. Spoilers, the refund ending is the better option. 10 out of 10. Best periodic table collecting simulator ever.
All right, Dave, on 3. 1, 2, 3. No Man's Sky. Yeah.
Yes.
The refund, the galaxy and the refund ending were dead giveaways.
We got to go over the rules again because I'm buzzing in like in the middle of people talking and stuff.
That was an easy one. There were so many like funny ones about No Man's Sky that I just ended up picking one.
I didn't even think of No Man's Sky. I should have picked that one. That's a good one. Those were probably very entertaining. I might just look at those just to get entertainment out of that.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll go next. Mine is off GameStop. The title of this is Terrible Campaign, The Worst Multiplayer. I bought this the day it came out, and within a month, I got rid of it. Once I beat the campaign, I went to do split-screen multiplayer, and it wouldn't let me. So if you're looking for a blank that has split-screen at all, do not buy this one.
I got it.
Matt, you got it?
I have a guess.
What's your guess? And then we'll get Dave's.
My guess is Halo 5.
That's what my guess was.
Yep, you are correct. Halo 5. The joke's on him for even trying to go to split screen. I don't know what he was. And then there's another review that I just want to run by the last line on you guys. I really hope Bungie steps it up for Halo 6 because that was terrible. And then there's a reply to it. You can't be that big of a Halo fan if you think Bungie still makes it.
Oh no!
You got served.
Yeah, you got
served.
Big time. All right, Dave, what is your review?
All right, here we go. Mine is from Metacritic. It's a user review. Here we go. Campaign is okay. Multiplayer is freaking awful. Too much randomness and garbage taken from COD. And less features than the other ones. The worst one yet.
Worst one yet.
It's obviously a Call of Duty because he said COD.
Well, they're comparing it to Call of Duty.
Oh.
Do you want me to read it again one more time?
Yeah, one more time.
Yeah.
Campaign is okay. Multiplayer is freaking awful. Too much randomness and garbage taken from COD.
Oh, I know what it is.
And less features than the other games, and that makes this the worst one.
No, I don't. I thought it was Titanfall because it's very Call of Duty.
Yeah.
But he said the other ones.
Right, the other ones.
I got 2 reviews. You want me to read the second one?
Yeah, read the second one. We're going to get this.
This game will mostly be known for a few things. First, it was the only one of these games made without the original developer. Second, it's considered one of the worst and one of the best by many. In my opinion, I hated the matchmaking. They did everything right. I truly felt as though I was on the battlefield. The only problem is that it did not draw me in. Whether it was the ranking system that made no sense or just how it felt too complicated with everyone having their own loadouts, it truly didn't appeal to me. The campaign, on the other hand, was what I was looking forward to. The graphics are amazing and I truly enjoyed it. I just didn't like where the storyline went.
My guess is like Battlefield 1.
That was obviously my guess. I was going to say Battlefield 1.
I must have did a really great job picking these out. You're going to know exactly. It's all going to make sense to you when I tell you what it is. You give up?
I don't want to give up, but I don't have anything.
Is it like relatively recent or?
It's relatively. You're going to be kicking yourself when you hear it.
Okay. They're comparing it to Call of Duty.
Halo 4?
It is Halo 4.
Okay.
Halo 4. Wow.
I forgot that Halo 4 is Call of Duty.
Oh, yeah. And you have the different loadouts.
I'm like,
too.
hold on. I'm not throwing
I couldn't believe Connor picked Halo 5.
Yeah.
I tried to tie it into our top list, and obviously we were on the same wavelength. I'm just glad we both didn't pick the same game.
I started fearing that when you said, okay, campaign, bad, well, I'm like, oh, no. Go with Well, I should have got that a lot quicker. That was a good one. Good job. All right, that was Name That Game. We will be playing that again sometime. So let's dive into our reviews. I'll lead us off with the Chain of Memories. Like I said, this is the second game in the Kingdom Hearts collection that you could buy on PS4. I talked about the first Kingdom Hearts game. That was just Kingdom Hearts 1 Final Mix. I talked about that in another episode, so go back and listen to that if you want to. The Chain of Memories, there's a couple release dates on this because it's kind of confusing. The Game Boy Advance version is the very first version that was released November 2004. And then they remade it for PlayStation 2 in December of 2008. So what they did from the Game Boy Advance to the PS2 is they basically just took everything from the Kingdom Hearts 1 engine and threw it in, and then took the combat system from Game Boy Advance into this like new engine. It's kind of hard to explain unless you see it. It's developed by Square Enix, obviously. It took me 33 painful hours to complete. Let me tell you a little bit about the background of the game, then I'm going to go right into the combat system because this is really the bulk of what I want to talk about. So, Chain of Memories is immediately following the events of Kingdom Hearts 1. So, the ending cutscene on Kingdom Hearts 1 is basically the start of Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories. Like, you could see the end of the cutscene taking place still. So, you leave right off there. Your main character, Sora, he stumbles into this castle. Once he enters this castle, he loses all of his memories. So basically, he loses all of the memories from that last game you just did. So Kingdom Hearts 1, he loses all those memories. So what you're trying to do throughout the whole game is gain your memories back through this castle. So each floor that you go through is a world that you visited in Kingdom Hearts 1. So you're basically playing Kingdom Hearts 1 again, but with this whole new combat system, which is basically a game of war with cards where you have a deck of cards, your enemies have a deck of cards, and if you put down a 5 and if they have a 4, you win, you hit them with your damage. If you put down a 7 and they put down an 8, you take damage. It's basically how it is, but it's very, very, very fast-paced because you're in the middle of trying to dodge attacks, like you're rolling around trying to do all this while paying attention to your cards, paying attention to their cards that they're about to use, so you're making sure that you don't match up like with a worse card because you could skip cards. And I put a video up on our Twitch page of me starting off this game. Like after about my first 30 minutes, I recorded the next hour. I was just so confused in that first hour. Matt, I know you kind of poked in and watched a little bit of that footage, and
yeah, you were. I think it was like you were saying with the cards. I remember you just kind of kept asking yourself, so why is that happening, or what is going on with this now? It was taking. Yeah. The game was not helping at all with explaining what was happening.
It was a massive learning curve. Just accessing doors. When you go to a door, they'd say, "This you have to have a green card with a 5 and a green card with an 8." It's like, wait, what am I doing? Like they're just starting right off. It's very, very confusing. But
right.
On a positive spin, it's different. If you want something different, but on a more realistic spin, it's bad and it's not enjoyable. So take however you want to take that for what it's worth. So a couple things I did like though was the non-boss fight battles, just fighting normal enemy grunts, because I got to the point where I got so good at the cards and learned how to stack my cards in a way that I just flew through all non-boss battles. So that made the game go a little bit quicker. The story did tie up a couple loose ends from Kingdom Hearts 1, so that was good just to kind of see that. And moving forward into Kingdom Hearts 2, I'll see, oh, that's what happened between these two games now. This makes sense. Hopefully, at least. I'm really hoping that this pays off. The dislikes, the combat system, but like I said, if you're into something different, it definitely is a challenge. So if you're into challenges, you just want something a little bit different from the Kingdom Hearts, but just more Kingdom Hearts exposure, I would say you might have a good time. The boss fights were terrible, so painful experiences because you have your deck of cards. Like I said, they have their deck of cards, but their decks of cards are much, much stronger than yours, so you have to stack them. There's a thing called a slight where you have to put like an 8, a 9, another 9. So those will total up, and then that total will be bigger than their slight, and you'll get a whole combo. But it's very difficult to do. There were about 3 bosses that probably took about 10 years off my lifespan. That I just Vexen. He was so frustrating. Because it wasn't even skill. It was just, am I going to get lucky this time? And my card's just going to line up in a good spot where I could break his attack and card breaking. It was very stressful. So overall, if you get the collection, the Kingdom Hearts collection, just read up on the story of what happened in Chain of Memories. But like I said before, if you're really looking for that challenge and looking for something different, maybe you're into card games. I could see people enjoying like a Hearthstone or, something like that where they're just into card games. Then that's cool. Play it. But I would not recommend it if you're looking for just the Kingdom Hearts experience. So I gave this game a 5.5. Maybe it could have been lower, but 5.5 I thought was fair just because it's definitely not good. And I did have a little bit of fun with it just because of the story wrap up. But other than that, there's really not a whole lot to take from Chain of Memories besides a pretty painful experience that I'm glad it's over, and I look forward to Kingdom Hearts 2 to see where the story leads. So that is Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories. Like I said, that's in the collection, so you do have to buy the collection to play this game. Unless you have a Game Boy Advance, you could play the original or a PS2. But other than that, I'm sure it's pretty difficult to find. So let's go on to the Call of Duty Infinite Warfare with Dave. So Dave, tell us a little bit about Call of Duty.
So a lot of us are probably familiar with Call of Duty, and it's a good chance that a lot of people who are listening have played this game or seen somebody play it or have played one of the many, many Call of Duty games. But this Call of Duty is called Infinite Warfare. It's the same as all the other first-person shooters. This one's developed by Infinity Ward, and it was released in November of 2016, so it's not too terribly old. And you can find it new for around $30 if you get the version without the remaster of Modern Warfare. In COD Infinite Warfare, you play as Nick Reyes, a member of the UNSA military, and the UNSA is an alliance that spans the entire Earth that was brought upon by the depletion of resources needed to sustain human life. And the people of Earth have to work together to mine and colonize other planets in the solar system. However, there are some bad guys who want to gain control of all the resources, called the Settlement Defense Front, or SDF as they call them in the game. And after they attack the UNSA, Reyes is given control of a spaceship and promoted, and his task is to prevent the SDF from taking control of the solar system. Oh, and I think it's worth mentioning that the SDF is being commanded by none other than the Game of Thrones own Jon Snow.
Jon Snow.
Jon Snow is in the game. I'm not fooling.
Is he a voice actor, or is
he's in the game?
Like character
in the
model?
game.
They modeled after him. Yep.
Wow.
His voice
just like they used Kevin Spacey from another.
Correct.
Yeah, that's right.
Correct. So this one's Jon Snow. So if you're a big Game of Thrones fan and you like Call of Duty, this is a double win. And he plays a pretty awesome evil character. So the game's action packed. It's full of some of the best action sequences I've seen in gaming and movies alike. The pacing is breakneck to the point where it actually starts to negatively affect the narrative, but it doesn't ruin the experience. If you're looking to be part of an epic action movie featuring Jon Snow, this game is for you. I would go ahead and buy it right now. But if you're someone who needs a deep story and craves the interactions that affect the overall plot, there's not a whole lot here for you. Not a lot of customization of the character himself either. So I didn't bother going over the multiplayer in depth because multiplayer, guys, if you're wondering what multiplayer of Call of Duty is like, go play literally any Call of Duty since, I don't know, what would you say, the
Modern
Call of Duty 3,
Modern Warfare,
even
I
before
think, yeah.
that. I think Call of Duty 3, they started this thing where every Call of Duty multiplayer is exactly the same. Go try one. The pros, holy action Batman. Some of the coolest sequences in action gaming, period. Cutscenes are expertly crafted and they look beautiful. The gunplay is always a strength of Call of Duty games. I always enjoy the gunplay. For the cons, I would say that the multiplayer is riddled with the level-based unlocks. Some people like it. I absolutely hate it. The spaceship dogfights are way, way, way overdone. One sequence of it would have been enough because if I wanted to play Star Fox, I would have purchased Star Fox. The movement mimics Titanfall, but it feels a little bit clunkier and a little less satisfying. And some of the characters are really, really annoying. They're meant to be funny, but it failed. Omar in particular is the guy that sticks out in my mind. I couldn't wait till that guy was just no longer in frame. Final verdict, even though it sounded like the negatives were weighted pretty heavy, they were actually not something that I'm really too concerned about. So I give it an 8 out of 10, which is a great on our scale. And it's probably my second favorite campaign next to the original Modern Warfare. And if you eliminate some of those not funny characters who make no sense being in the story and you take out some of those dogfights that make it feel a little bit like Star Fox, this thing could have been a 9 out of 10. So that is Infinite Warfare. And I know you guys, Matt, you've played it. What?
Yeah, I played Infinite Warfare. I got it with the Call of Duty 4 remaster. That was, yeah, I didn't really, I think the remaster kind of overshadowed Infinite Warfare a little bit because that was a huge selling point for a ton of people because it was like,
I'm getting the selling point.
Right, I'm getting the remaster and then I get another new one on top of that. Why not? You know, so I think that was my thought process, and I enjoyed the game. I didn't enjoy it as much as Dave. I think I gave it a 7 out of 10, which I'm not too far off from him, but a lot of the same things he said I agreed with. The action is insane. The production value is through the roof. The game looks and plays really great. And like he said, it does get so breakneck, so actiony to the point where you're kind of asking yourself, this is really cool that I'm blowing all this stuff up and killing all these robots and everything, but what am I actually trying to do right now? You know, you kind of forget like what your objective was sometimes.
What am I doing and where did Jon Snow go?
Right, exactly. So, but it's for any Call of Duty fan, obvious pickup. If you're on the fence about it, maybe check out some videos, see if someone's playing on Twitch or something like that. But it's an enjoyable game.
So the last Call of Duty game I bought was Modern Warfare 2, and that's what, 2009, 2010.
That's a while back. Yeah.
That's the last Call of Duty I bought. And I have a question. If I were to go pick up Infinite Warfare and play through this campaign, would I be lost at all? Is there any sort of correlation between the old Call of Duties? Because I know in Modern Warfare 1 and Modern Warfare 2, if I remember correctly, it's been a long time, but there was some character overlap and a little bit of story. Am I wrong on that, or am I remember that? Because I could have sworn, wasn't there a character named Ghost, I want to say?
I never played 2.
I think sometimes I think they've actually used some of the same names, but
so I wouldn't be lost at all.
No, you would not. No. It's a completely new story.
Do any of the Call of Duties?
It's set in the future. Infinite Warfare, they're in space, like it's way in the future.
Yeah.
Do any of the Call of Duties follow a consistent storyline?
I know that the Black Ops ones do. There's like a character connection between, I think, 1 and 2, but I'm not sure about 3. I think maybe even 3.
There might be. I know a lot of times they just keep the name for like that series, but they don't keep the stories connected at all.
No.
But would you guys want to see a consistent story arc?
If it was interesting enough, I mean, sure, but it seems like it's hard for them to. They usually can wrap it up in like an 8 to 10 hour campaign, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of like the single serving Call of Duty games. I like that it's. I know I'm going to enjoy the gameplay every time I get a Call of Duty, and then I get something a little bit different. So we're not necessarily like stuck with a really lousy storyline.
That's true. Yeah. So
okay.
I give it a Jon Snow out of 10.
Jon Snow.
I would play again.
Which for you Game of Thrones fans is not even on the list on the charts.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into our discussion about the Vita. Little bit about the Vita is it was released in North America in February 15th, 2012. It did release, I think, about 6 months to a year in Japan earlier than the North American release. It is extremely difficult to get sales numbers on the Vita. No matter where you look, Sony's always been pretty private about their sales, especially with the Vita. The estimates is basically all I could find. But estimates through 2016 was that it sold 10 million worldwide. So, I mean, that's fairly well, I guess. I don't know if you want to think that's good or not, but
the Wii U sold, I think, like 13 million?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I'm going to guess not good.
Yeah, I would say it's not very good, but especially with, I think in the beginning it really took off, but then it really slowed down. But in Japan, it's still doing pretty well. So, little disclaimer about the Vita for the LAN Partners here is that all three of us have owned the Vita, and all three of us had traded in the Vita. So,
sadly,
Matt, where are you at with the Vita?
I think I loved the Vita for what it was. I know when it came out, I think the price point scared people to death because it was a handheld, and it had great potential. It had the power, like it could crush the 3DS in terms of graphical power and fidelity and things like that. But I think what happened is Sony just, I guess maybe they were seeing how the sales were going and they decided to not support it as much with any big title games. I know early on, like they had a Killzone game that all three of us all played together.
Mercenary.
And those were, that was by a huge developer for Sony. And I think if they would have been able to maybe commit more resources to having people put out games like that on the Vita, that maybe would have saved it. I don't know. But it seems like they didn't even want to give it a shot. They kind of left it. And for the last couple of years, they don't even talk about the Vita like it's even theirs anymore. They barely bring it up even at their conferences and stuff. They just assume nobody really cares about the thing anymore, and they just dropped it. It's done.
Dave, where do you stand on this Vita issue?
I see a lot of actually similarities between the PS Vita and this whole VR thing that's going on right now. You got this really expensive piece of equipment that I believe the Vita was $250 when it came out. So you've got this thing that costs as much as a console,
a Nintendo
that's
console
being released.
Sure, right?
And what you're doing is you're battling Nintendo on their home field because the DS was already had a huge install base by the time this thing came out, and so you're battling on Nintendo's home court. Nintendo's been dominating that market, and what do? You come out with something that looks phenomenal, right? But at what cost? And we get back to development and development cost and development time. I'm pretty sure the LAN Partners here could whip up a Nintendo DS game if we had the right development kit, and it would look on par with some DS games that actually were released and sold. I don't think that we would come close to releasing anything that looks good on the Vita because, like Matt said, it was kind of like a PlayStation 2.5 when it came out. It wasn't quite as powerful as the PlayStation 3, but it still looked better than PS2. And so you're looking now at games that, in the PlayStation 3 era took 2 to 3 years to develop for. You're going to do that for the Vita when you can go ahead and make one for the Nintendo DS with half the costs and half the time, with half the amount of staff, and try to turn a profit in a market where Nintendo is charging a reduced price for these DS games and you're trying to charge more money for your Vita games. It was kind of doomed from the start. That's kind of how I see VR going, is exactly what happened to the Vita. That being said, like Matt was saying before, I did really enjoy the games that were released because it was like a PlayStation 2.5. With the exception of Dragon's Crown. Don't buy it. Don't support it.
Oh, no.
False advertisement.
Dragon's Crown was a huge scam.
Yeah, you can't throw the word multiplayer on a game when you lock it behind the entire campaign. So,
completing the game.
Yeah, I'm still, that's going to be a sore subject for me until the end of my time. But I would say nothing could have saved the Vita other than it releasing the same time the Switch did and being more like the Switch, to be like a hybrid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there was some things that the Vita did well. I know they, later on they tried to do the whole crossplay between your PS4 and your Vita, like once the PS4 launched, where they said they basically try to take the Wii U idea and develop for Sony to maybe get people to buy it, where you play a PS4 on your Vita, where it's streaming from your PS4 to your Vita, so you don't have to be watching TV just like a Wii U did at the time. But the problem was the connection was always terrible. It never worked. The controller ports, like how you have on PS4, you have an R1 and R2, L1, L2. Well, you don't have that on a Vita. You only have the right and left bumper. So then they had to put in, you had to touch the screen as if you were touching
touch on the back of it.
Yeah, as if you were hitting the trigger. So it didn't translate very well. But there were, a few games on the Vita that were okay. I'm looking at the top 10 sold games for the Vita, and number 1 is the Uncharted game they came out with for the Vita. That sold 1.4 million units. Assassin's Creed came out with a Vita game. Call of Duty came out with a Vita game. Persona 4 was probably the biggest. Persona 4 gave me value out of my Vita because playing Persona 4 was great. And that's about it, besides the Killzone game. And, I played a couple other games, but other than that, I was just desperate to try to find some sort of value for my Vita. What can I play? Give me something. It's just basically a giant HD collection system where you can buy the Metal Gear collection, you can buy the God of War collection. There's plenty of other ones too, but Final Fantasy has a collection on there also. So
yeah, I think what they did too, you could tell that they moved away from at least the Western market, because if you go in the shop in the Vita, it's just all these Japanese made games that we in America have no idea about, and they don't get marketed here at all or advertised. So you're looking through the store, and I know me and Connor sometimes we'd be looking for a game to maybe get into, and we're going through and we're like, what is this game about? What is this game about? And we never knew.
Desperation.
And it's and it's I can't invest money into this game because I don't know anything about it, and I feel like it's not even made for my market. And it seemed like they kind of just went away from America and they kept it over by them, which is fine. It sounds like the sales are better over there, so maybe that's why. But yeah, it just wasn't fitting.
It's a JRPG machine for sure. There are so many JRPGs on the Vita that if you're into that, this is probably better than the Switch for you then, because it does have just tons and tons of JRPGs. But I still, even that wouldn't give me enough. Even if I was into JRPGs, it's still not enough reason for me to keep my Vita. We even all bought the Madden game on Vita. Or Matt, I don't know if you did, but I know
I did not know.
Yeah, we definitely had it.
Yeah, I know we did. We played that quite a bit. I mean, we tried. We gave it a fair chance.
We tried.
I really, it was one of those. The Vita was something that I really wanted to and tell everybody was the greatest, and I tried so hard, and there were those little glimpses of sunshine. I think there was even a Borderlands game, or maybe the exact same game but re-released for handheld, and that would have been really cool. If I didn't already hate the Vita by then. So
right.
And they had the gimmicky Nintendo. They're oh, DS. We had the touch screen on the DS. Let's put a touch screen on the back so people can feel around the back. And
I forgot about that.
Have no physical buttons, but you still can touch it and it does things. And then nobody used it because why would you? So. Right. It was just, I don't know. It was a puzzling move after puzzling move with the Vita, and I really wanted to like it. I really, really did. But, I mean, I think that Nintendo with the Switch really, really knocked it out of the park when it came to combining all the best things from all the best handhelds we've ever had, and that's what the Switch is. It's the best of every single handheld they've made. They got rid of anything that they were underutilizing. They kept the best things from the DS. They took the fact that the Vita was a powerhouse machine and were oh, let's do this too. We'll make a, Vita that actually is fun to play. And so, I feel bad for the Vita and for Sony for, kind of losing a lot of money on that. And I wish it was better. But, at the end of the day, who really wants to own a Vita?
I think at the beginning, we just told ourselves that it was awesome. Right? This is fun, guys, right?
We made ourselves believe.
I think you and I both got it for Black Friday, didn't we?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Black Friday, and we found it, and we're oh, it's going to be the best. I remember
with Lego Batman. I'm not playing this.
I'm not
Yeah.
playing.
Then it just became trade credit in our minds. That we
Yeah,
were like, we got to dump this thing.
$80. This Vita's coming in handy. Good thing I bought this
My
Vita.
hands.
I want that new Halo game, so I'm gonna trade in this Vita.
Did it hurt your hands too? Like I almost thought about getting that like grip that it sits in, because after playing Killzone with you guys for even like a half hour, I remember my hands were just aching because it was such a
it's
weird
awkward.
oval
Right?
shape, and
It's not a great shape. So hopefully Sony will come out with another handheld in the future, but we'll just have to wait and see. I don't see that happening, but maybe a Vita 2.0, who knows. But so let's get into some news stories. The big news story that I heard about today was that the Olympic Committee for 2024 are thinking about making esports a Olympic sport. So playing, video games as an Olympic sport. Matt, where do you stand on this topic?
Yeah, I know I sent you the article today. I know this was like a last minute thing, but we all had a quick moment to talk about it together today earlier. And I think it's just, we all kind of agreed that we don't think it's meant to be in the Olympics. We don't think it's even more so, it's not ready for the Olympics. It doesn't fit well. I think Dave brought up some good points about, Olympic sports it's been the same consistent events for so long. And in video games, it's like Dave said, I'm going to quote you again, Dave, using Counter-Strike 1.6, you'd have to use that forever, because that would be the baseline of how people did in that game. And we know video games don't scale well over time, like especially over hundreds of years. I mean, they can't be expected to play the same game. So and there's no room to really set records per se. I mean, it's kind of like, okay, that team won the match, and it's just, I don't know.
So Dave, what else do you have to add before I go into my reasons?
I just want people to I got nothing to add because, it is what it is. But I would like people to imagine for a moment, just because I think it's really funny. Imagine imagine it does become an esport, and they're like, all right, we are going with Counter-Strike 1.6. Imagine these people who have electronics embedded in their bodies 300 years from now, so advanced, technology's improved so much, and they're playing Counter-Strike 1.6, sitting on these computers that can
on Dust 2.
On Dust 2, sitting on computers that can run about 300,000 instances of CS 1.6.
All right.
Cell phones will even have far surpass the amount of power needed to play this game. You're gonna have people sitting around playing it. Come on.
Long A.
Yeah,
So here's why.
What was the record for this one?
Here's why I don't think it should be an Olympic sport. It has nothing to do with it being a video game, but it's just the fact that a sport sport is like chess. Chess is not a physical demanding sport, but it's not an Olympic sport. So in my mind, if chess is an Olympic sport, then how can video games be? And not just that alone, but also back in the 90s, skateboarding, rollerblading, biking, those were all extremely, extremely popular sports, but those were never considered Olympic sports. So they had to invent the X Games just to give this some sort of Olympic feel to it. And just now, in 2020, will be the first time we will see skateboarding be a competition in the Olympics. And that was all the way back in the 90s when skateboarding was, Tony Hawk, all those guys just dominating the sport, bringing it to so much public light. And just now it's becoming a thing. I mean, how long has esports been around? Not 30 years.
Right. Yeah.
Counter-Strike 1.6, I know it's from the 60s, but I don't think they've been playing that game competitively that long. Am I right, Dave?
It's been about that time. I think I might have been in my second on my second degree when.
Yeah, maybe. And also,
Oh, go ahead.
There's one more point I want to make. Also, there are so many sports right now that are physical, demanding, Olympic sports that you would call Olympic sports, like softball, baseball. Baseball's not even an Olympic sport, maybe because it's in the season of the actual baseball season, but that doesn't mean, I don't know, hockey's in the season that the hockey season is for the Olympics, so they still play, not the professional athletes. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but, baseball's not a sport, softball's not a sport. So all these physical sports that, you'd count them as an Olympic sport aren't even Olympic sports yet because of the popularity. They're not worldwide popularity to get enough people to compete in these sports. So I just don't think video games have any place right now in the Olympic talk until chess, all these other sports that have been around much, much, much longer than video games becomes at a sport in the Olympics. So Dave, what were you going to say?
Well, just to add on to what you were saying, too, to the credit of chess, again, it's not going to change. The game of chess is going to be the same forevermore, and people are still going to play it. Video games make themselves obsolete after about 8 years. So I think one more thing that I wanted to bring up that we talked about a little bit earlier as far as, Olympic sports and esports and all that. Esports kind of already are Olympic sports because if you look at the major tournaments, they're international. Dota 2 has one of the biggest international tournaments that the world has seen in terms of esports. And there are qualifiers for different countries. There's certain teams that make it from different countries, and you see the flag on those teams, and they represent the country as well as, just themselves. And I think that esports have kind of already, in my mind, surpassed the Olympics in that it is a, giant endeavor that's going to include, you could make an Olympics out of just esports. You could say there's an RPG, or not an RPG, an RTS category. There's an FPS category. There's a fighter, category. There's a racer category. You can make an Olympics out of just esports if you wanted to. And I don't think you'd have to destroy a city to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and say that I don't think it should be an Olympic sport, but who needs it? I say keep going with the way that it's going. Continue to be an esport. Continue to have an international presence. You can exist next to the Olympics without taking it over, like you were saying with the X Games. So
I was going to say, well, that sounds a lot like what the X Games did. You're not going to make us an Olympic sport. We're going to make ourselves an Olympic sport and invent their own Olympics. So, yeah, so let us know what you think about that. That's going to be a lot of buzz, I have a feeling, over the next couple weeks as that gets decided and, as the Paris committee looks that over. So it'll be interesting to see. I highly doubt that it will become an Olympic sport, considering chess isn't even one yet, and there are so many sports that are just now coming into the Olympic scene. So, let us know what you think. Let's get on with our list for episode 14 of the LAN Partners Podcast. That, again, is the top 3 Halo maps. I'll lead us off with my number 3. This is very, very tough for me to narrow down to my 3 favorite maps, but I think my number 3... honorable mention real fast, midship, but my number 3 is Haven. Haven from Halo 4. That's a gem. That's a classic map right there. There's close range combat. There's long range combat. It's all you could ask for out of a Halo map. So, Dave, what is your number 3 Halo map?
My number 3 is Lockout from Halo 2. Whenever I think of Halo, this is actually the first map that comes to mind. And I think for good reason. They've had remakes of it with the Anniversary Edition, and it's been included as, I think, DLC in Halo 3. I can't remember, though. But I think Lockout is kind of like the cornerstone of multiplayer Halo when I think of Halo maps.
For sure. Briner or Matt, what's your number 3?
So I have a considerably less amount of time, I think, overall lifetime career of Halo multiplayer. So please, no offense to any Halo junkies out there when I name my maps. This is based off my experience alone. My number 3 is Valhalla from Halo 3.
Oh, no. I was going to make a joke before the episode. None of you guys better have Valhalla.
So I'm not known for being a sniper, but this is a big map. But I love the idea that you have that long range, but it also provides that cover where you can sneak up on somebody and get around to the other side. I always kind of appreciated that freedom to kind of make that choice.
No, Valhalla is actually a fan favorite. I just don't like it because of the vehicles. I hate vehicle maps.
Yeah, I don't like vehicles either.
Yeah,
but
vehicle maps annoy me. All right, my number 2 is the ever classic Beaver Creek. That one is awesome. The 2 bases. That is another great map. I remember just sitting in Tony's basement playing Beaver Creek and all these other maps, but Beaver Creek really sticks out in my memory of just that map and it's also been remastered throughout all the games, so I love that map. Dave, what is your number 2?
My number 2 is Battle Creek, which is Beaver Creek, by the way.
Same
Battle
thing,
Creek
yeah.
is just Battle Creek is the Halo 1 version.
yeah.
I think Beaver Creek is Halo 2.
And the only reason I
And-
said Beaver Creek is because I played Halo 2 before ever playing Halo 1.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
In my memory, it was always the original.
So I called it Battle Creek, and I'm starting to have a sinking feeling that our lists are going to be eerily similar again this week.
I'm
But
pretty sure they're just upside down.
I think they're upside down. Battle Creek's awesome. And did you mention already that with Capture the Flag, like that is the best map of all time? Did you mention Capture the Flag?
I didn't say that, but that for sure is the best Capture the Flag map.
It is
super intense. Yeah.
It's the only Capture the Flag map in any video game that I don't absolutely hate. So that's worth noting.
Yeah, Matt, what is your number 2?
My number 2 is the map called Truth from Halo 5. It's that circular map where the middle everyone runs.
Midship, right?
It's midship. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So that's my number 2.
Yeah, I'm gonna replace that and just say midship. That's your new
Okay,
number 2. Midship.
that's fine.
Get some more Halo Street cred. Yeah, it's midship.
Yeah. All right.
Don't tell anyone you said.
I'm just kidding, Matt. Midship. All right. Number 1 is Lockout, and Dave predicted that one from a mile away. Yeah. So everything Dave said, ditto. Dave, what is your number 1?
I'm gonna ditto you on Haven. Number 1 is Haven for me, and it's literally your same explanation as what I was gonna say. Close and long range is perfect.
Matt, what is your number 1?
My number 1 is Battle Creek from Halo 1. That was
Halo 1. You're not even going Beaver Creek. You're going Battle Creek.
Yeah,
Halo 1. I played Halo 1 on
There's a street cred.
PC.
There it
PC had all the mods and everything too, so people would just do all kinds of wacky, crazy stuff.
Wait, where?
And
did
that
you
was
play
before I
Halo
even knew. On PC,
Combat
before I
Evolved.
even knew what mods were, I was like, "What is happening? Why do people have all these weird things going on?" And then I found out it was all mods.
How old were you when that happened?
I had to be in junior high.
Like when it
I
first
think.
came out, you played this?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. That's great. I didn't even know that. I didn't even realize that was happening. That's crazy.
That was for sure in high school at internet cafes when that was going on.
That's the only. I think that's the only Halo on PC, right? Is Halo 1?
I believe so.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Definitely the only one I've seen in cafes.
I had a late Halo exposure. That's why Beaver Creek stuck out to me so much more than Battle Creek. So tell us, leave a comment, send us a message, whatever you got to do. Tell us what your favorite Halo maps are. Maybe there's some big Halo fans out there. So leave a message on our Facebook. That was episode 14 of the LAN Partners Podcast. Subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, whatever you got to do. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Thank you so much for listening. Tell somebody about our podcast. Tell a friend. Tell a gaming friend while you're in a party chat. We'd love to get more people involved with the LAN Partners. Thanks again for listening. See you next week.